we've had our human rights taken away from us without any due cause, because we have to protect our civil liberties, and at the moment we are being micro-manipulated in our behaviour by the Scottish Government, and the way they're doing that is imposing fear on the population, completely unfounded fear on the population. And as a result of that, you can see people around here, they're shit scared. They don't want to go near anybody. And the truth is, and we've got all the data that we need, the truth is that people under about 65 and in good health have almost nothing to fear from this particular virus. And yet, what are we doing? We're miles away from everyone. We're not, it's absolutely ridiculous. So I want my civil liberties back. They've been taken away. It hasn't been properly voted on. It's unconstitutional. It's something that should never have happened in Scotland. We're supposed to be a democracy. We haven't used our democracy in any way to retain our civil rights. It's absolutely disgusting.
I'm just here today to be with some like-minded people and just hopefully get the word out that we're not just conspiracy nuts or anything like that. It's about freedom, and this is not about political parties. We're not far right or anything like that. It's just about basic freedom, and you can do the research. The truth is all out there. You just need a bit of curiosity and the information at your fingertips on Google. COVID-19 is not that deadly.
Here today to talk about unlawful legislation and the fact that we can expunge lawful legislation by way of a process unknown to most folk called jury nullification, which is in this book. This book outlines democracy in its entirety, how democracy is used, how the people are supposed to utilise it and instigate it, instead of governments telling us from the top down what to do every day of the week.
The justification of it is on the basis of science. Anyone goes into the science at all, they'll see that it's riddled with inconsistencies. The model on which this whole thing is based is based on models which don't represent the real world at all. It uses parameters in that model which are either guessed at or estimated with incredible amounts of variability, and then they're multiplied together. So estimates multiplied by guesses gives you absolute rubbish. And you can manipulate those models in any way to give you any kind of outcome from those models. And they've done it in such a way that it seems as if this particular virus, which is one of many which circulate every year in this country, is somehow very, very dangerous. Well, it isn't. The data's there. You just have to go and look at the data that has been collected, and it's obvious. Children have absolutely not affected. It's been allowed to happen because we have a press which is totally scientifically and quantitatively illiterate. It does not understand the concept of risk. It doesn't even understand the concept of proportion, I don't think. The reporting that's been done is to choose individual cases, and it's very distressing to see individual people who are very ill, and then to magnify that as if that was the whole situation. Well, it isn't. They picked on 1 out of 1,000, and then they've magnified it up and made it seem as if it's a terrible epidemic. Well, it isn't a terrible epidemic at all. And if you actually look at the data, you'll see that. And the problem is that we have the BBC, for instance, which is held up as some sort of institution which will give us fair information. Well, it doesn't. It's completely biased information. And you have to go and actually look at the data on which we've collected during the course of this epidemic, and you'll see that what they're talking about is complete rubbish.
I want to say just one thing, about big companies, like, big mass media companies. I don't want to name the, names, but they are big, massive propaganda. If you repeat non-stop certain things, people start to believe it, This is just pure nonsense what they say, because they say what they've been told to say by big pharmaceutical companies.
I can't understand how scientists who are supposed to be skeptical and are supposed to look at evidence and base their judgments on the basis of evidence, why haven't they gone to that? Why don't we have an outcry against it? I think it's because they have fear for their jobs, and I think they don't want to rock the boat, and they're just too scared to rock the boat. Well, I'm not in that position. I've retired, and I can say what I like, and what I like is the truth, and I want to say the truth.
For the majority of the healthy population, it really is not that deadly. By all means, protect the vulnerable, the people who do need care. By all means, of course, protect them. But the vast majority of people, our lives have been destroyed for no reason. This lockdown is completely unnecessary, and it's going to be a snowball effect for years to come in terms of the economy, mental health issues, you name it. It's just absolutely ridiculous. I think it's completely irrational. And that's it in a nutshell. The information is all out there, so I just encourage people to educate themselves. Please do. Just have a curious mind and find the facts for yourselves, please.
Seems to have a little bit more distance, guys.
No.
I'm not going to take that off.
Could have grown on it.
What is it?
Do you think I might be contaminated?
Yes, you could be, and you're also within the 2 metres.
Oh,
My
dear.
colleague
Oh, right. Well,
just-
don't come down and arrest me, because you'll have to come within 2
We
metres.
don't want to arrest anybody. We just want to protect the
Okay,
You're all shoulder to shoulder there.
I
Ask
don't
you just
want.
to create a little bit of
I don't
distancing,
want you to
please.
get into any trouble.
Thank you.
Into any trouble.
Same to yourselves, you're all shoulder to shoulder.
We're just trying to do what we can do.
We're boosting the immune system. It's like Sweden, they boost their immune systems in groups, so they all get immunity. So that's what we're doing.
Well, if you want to do that, that's your personal
Because Corona's just a
okay?
whole group for
That's your
thousands of
personal
years.
choice.
This is a government agenda.
Asking
Agenda
you.
21/30. That's what this is. This is the new world
You're not
order.
gonna let me.
Taking the right to know that we're going holiday. You know we're doing nothing. You know we're going on a bus. You know we're doing nothing. You didn't care what's happening. It's your children, your granddaughters who are standing. It's all shit.
This is what to do with this coronavirus bill, which is a toxic piece of legislation which invalidates everybody's right to privacy. It's all about the 5G network, the spying network on your phones. It's all about insipid terrorism by the state, really. When they can see 3D into your house through these masts and these transmitters, they can now get a 3D imprint of everything that's gone on, who you're with, who you're associating with. All your phones are tracking you. And it's all about legislation. Legislation isn't law. Law's created by people in jury judgments. It's not created by legislation. Legislation is just the will of Parliament. The will of Parliament can be overseen and superseded by the will of the people through jury courts, which they've now took away, been chipping away at since the 1800s, and now they've taken them away altogether. Now the Scottish courts are getting rid of jury trials altogether now. But they're not the jury trials in the common sense. The only jury trial you should have is the fact that the jury tries the whole case. They try the evidence, the facts, what evidence can be led, what decisions are made, and then the judge gets the executive function, not the judicial function, from the will of the people after the determination of the case. Now this has never happened in these Scottish courts. These Scottish courts, when a point of law is raised before a jury gets taken out of the court and they can't hear half the case. In the scales of justice, you're supposed to have the facts that you're accused of on one side and the law on the other, because the law might be wrong. They might be overstepping their jurisdiction, they might be breaching their mandate. Now the government's only ever, and this is serious, the government's only ever here under public confidence. Now if government gets tyrannical, the people have the right to revoke confidence in government and shut them down and instigate a new method of jurisdiction. We have a right to take our government back, to set a second chamber in Parliament full of the people, oversee what the people in the Parliament are doing, and talk down to them rather than beg up to them by ways of petitions and all these 100,000 signatures to get mentioned in Parliament. That's no democracy. Democracy is expelled through the courts every day of the week when the jury's informed of a proper function, which is to correct the process of government when it gets too tyrannical and it creates injustice. When injustice is to be done and by the hand of the government, we have an omnipotent right to rise up and stop government in their tracks. That's what this book's all about.
On the day that the lockdown was announced, I wrote a paper and I sent it to the health minister, and I outlined what needed to be done in this situation. And what needed to be done is to identify people who are vulnerable, so the old and those in care homes. And we need to isolate those people because they have a chance of very serious illness. The rest of the people, it's not a problem. I also said that we should then have the carers who are going into those and to those vulnerable people. We should use the scarce resources that we have for testing people on those carers, so that we don't bring the virus into contact with these vulnerable people. And the rest of the people, what we should do is allow them to mingle with one another, pass on the virus, infect one another. They will not be, most of the people won't even notice they've got the virus. So it won't matter at all. A few people will get more ill, but we will have adequate resources to deal with those people. And after they've been infected, that will mean that they're immune. And we've got a lot, and once we get a lot of immunity in the population, there's nowhere for the virus to go, and it will die out. And it will die out naturally. And once that's happened, there's no risk to those people who are more vulnerable, because the virus is gone. And that happens every year with every kind of virus that comes around seasonally in this country.
Volume in this called the trial by jury, which shows you where the rights of the people always laid, which is in the judgment of their peers. I mean, government's just an administrative body, that's its only function. So why have we gave them all the power to tell us what to do every day of the week? The power of the people to do what they want unreservedly. But governments now came in as administrator and took reins of the power structure, and now they dictate to us through career politicians and career judges to now oversee what happens in the court system. The court system's a fraud. It's always been a fraud. It's about legal plunder, to steal people's assets, to steal their kids. Now that the GDPR's putting people in jail, you can't find them in the jail because of GDPR rules, because they're hiding people once the state steals them through fraudulent court practices. This is what's happening every day of the week. So the new terrorism laws, which they've now brought in, it's called the Coronavirus Act, is unlawful for its instigation because it's never been tried for a jury of the people. This is the fifth pillar of democracy. You've got the court systems, the legislator, the executive, all these functions are supposed to oversee so that the common law doesn't get infracted by statute. If the common law gets infracted by statute, the common law prevails and it overrules what's actually been done by Parliament. And it also pays back restitution for people that have been violated by the fraudulent legislation they've enacted, which includes everybody that's dying in their homes now, which are all supposed to be getting infected, and now we can go and just pull them out their houses and isolate them and quarantine them. Who gave government so much power? The government's only supposed to do the will of the people. Scotland's supposed to have a government base suited its needs. Where's that? Nicola Sturgeon's kowtowed to Boris Johnston, now she's been made authoritarian in Boris Johnson. They're all fraudulent, they're all part of the legal society, which is a law society, the City of London, the Temple Bar, where you used to put your head on a poke for no paying your taxes, which is a private sovereign country. It's not to do with Britain. It's got the remembrance that sits in Parliament, overrules all the politicians in Parliament, so it's not a democracy because the City of London's in control.
I think it's definitely a whole infringement on our basic human rights. I mean, especially people who live alone. I mean, you need to be able to socially interact as people, and there are a lot of elderly people who live alone as well. I mean, I've actually spoken to, grandparents and things like that, so my neighbours who are grandparents, and it's killing them not being able to socially interact with their grandchildren, and they don't know how long this is going to go on for. It's just, I don't know, it's just insanity. And I just wake up every day with a mixture of, rage and despair, to be honest, because I just want people to wake up and educate themselves.
And they make from normal people clowns which protest against this. And they have such a power that it's really ridiculous even to try to say something, because they distort it, edit it, and spread, and they call it fake news. Yeah? They call it fake news. That's the idea. Yeah? But the biggest fake news are made by biggest mass media in this world, not only in the UK, everywhere.
And this is no different from any of those other viruses. We have an incredible, highly evolved immune system, which has evolved over millions of years to cope with viruses, and that is the thing that keeps us safe all the time. It's not drugs that keep us safe. They don't keep us safe at all. And even if you're talking about vaccinations only work because they stimulate our own immune systems and it's the immune system that knocks out the virus, not the vaccine. So it's completely ridiculous, the approach that is being taken. Cooping up people inside houses does immense harm in terms of their physical and mental well-being. There's more chance of transmitting a virus if you're indoors. If you come out here, there's sunshine, the viruses will be killed. We should be out here playing. We should be hugging each other. We should be distributing the virus around those people who are young and healthy, so that we get a population which is then immune from the virus, and those people who are at risk, they will no longer be at risk because the virus won't be around.
We are no more free, and we can be taken now to jail, being arrested or fined for having our own opinions, and it is totally not right. I was living under communism, and actually as a child I saw actually exactly the same what it's just now in Scotland, and for me it's absolutely unbelievable that the past is returned. It's unbelievable for me.
We've had our human rights taken away from us without any due cause. There could have been a case at the very beginning when the NHS was not prepared, and it was feared that this would have a big effect, and we didn't know how big the effect was going to be. After 3 weeks, it was clear that there was only a small class of people who were particularly vulnerable to this virus. And so you could not justify, beyond a short period of time, the imposition of the removal of our human rights from us. And I just cannot understand how people will tolerate this. We fought for this. We fought a Second World War for this. And what do? We just give it up like that because we're scared of a little bit of a virus. It's absolutely ridiculous. Open up the countries to people who are young and healthy. Let them go out, spread the virus among themselves, get immune, and then we can release those people who have much worse problems from the lockdown. And we're doing immense harm in terms of the economic damage which we're doing to this country, which doesn't affect the old and vulnerable, because they won't be here for very long anyway. It affects the young, and it's the young we should be standing up for. And it's a whole generation of older people who are sacrificing the young for a fear which is completely whipped up by a media unable to have any sense of proportion